Close my eyes, I open my heart. I'll take a deep breath, let the healing start. I lift my hands, I plant my feet, I let love in. I feel the beat that's calling us to rise, rise, spirit rise up, rise in me. I let in my soul, I clear my mind. I'm here and now, in present time. The power of 1,000 suns lighting up the dark. Oh, we rise as one. Oh, rise, rise, spirit rise up, rise in me. You sing to me, change up this noise, make sweet harmony. Come on and rise, oh rise, spirit rise up, rise in me. To heart, hand in hand, no turning back, onward to promised land. Do you feel the power of 1,000 suns lighting up the dark? Oh, we rise as one.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Let's see. How's everybody doing? Good. See a couple new faces. That's nice. Shirley's back. She came last week for Mother's Day, and was coming from Reno, and now she moved to Minden, so I'm telling your secrets. So we expect to see you more. Okay. Well, welcome everybody. Let's get started with our mission statement. To awaken, acknowledge, and nurture the divine in everyone. Yes. Call ourselves to worship here and get this going.
Our thoughts are prayers, and we are always praying. Our thoughts are prayers. Listen to what you're saying. Seek a higher consciousness, a state of peacefulness, and know that God is always there. Every thought becomes a prayer. Our thoughts are prayers, the tools that we create with. Our thoughts are prayers that spirit resonates with. Seek a higher consciousness, a state of mindfulness, and know that God is always there. And every thought becomes a prayer. Our thoughts are prayers, and we are always praying. Our thoughts are prayers. Listen to what you're saying. Seek a higher consciousness, a state of peacefulness, and know that God is always there. Every thought becomes a prayer.
Okay, let's move right into a prayer. A purposeful, intentional, affirmative, positive prayer. Divine loving Spirit, all intelligence and wisdom and compassion are in this moment as we live and breathe this presence. We come with joy in our hearts as we know that this presence is healing us, is standing with us, for we are never alone. We know that that light and that love is with us. And as we come to know it more and more on a personal level, we come to know that we are love, that we are the light. And it is through the precious guidance of the presence that we come to know our place. And so we give thanks for that knowing. We give thanks for our guidance. And we give thanks for our brothers and sisters of all humanity that walks with us, reflecting back to us the presence. And so it is. If you'll all recite with me the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we also have forgiven our debtors. Lead us not in temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen. Okay, now I'd like to welcome up Timothy Gay.
Excellent. So this morning I have been invited to share a meditation with all of you, and I'm going to be using the Theta Healing Method, which I will also share with you a little bit in my talk. But I do want to go ahead and get into the meditation. So I call this the Rise and Shine meditation. And the Rise and Shine is designed for us to, it was originally designed as a morning meditation, but it perfectly fits this so we can begin to become fully integrated within all that is and be able to bring that to ourselves and into the planet and beyond. So I want to invite you all to get into a meditative position, to close your eyes, and to take a deep breath in and exhale through your mouth. And go ahead and take another deep breath in through your nose and exhale out your mouth. I want you all to light coming in from the center of the earth, bringing that light up from the center of the earth all the way up into the soles of your feet, lighting up your feet. This energy is warm, it is loving, it is beautiful. And I want you to imagine that energy beginning to start traveling up your body, and as it travels up your body, it lights up all of your body parts, lighting up your ankles, lighting up your shins and calves, your knees, your quads and hamstrings, your hips, your pelvic area. Also lighting up your abdomen, your stomach, your chest, your shoulders, your arms and hands and fingers, into your neck, into your jawline, to your lips, all the way up to your cheekbones, your ears, your eyes, your brow, forehead, all the way up into the top of your skull. I want you to also imagine and visualize your chakras being lit up as well as this energy begins to rise, lighting up your root chakra, beautiful red at the base of your spine, a deep indigo in your third eye, in the center of your brow, and a beautiful violet in your crown at the top of your head. I want you all to imagine and visualize that energy that rose to the top of your head continuing to travel out of the top of your head as a ball of light with your consciousness in it. And take time to notice its ball's color. And I want you to now visualize that ball beginning to rise above your body, above the space of the room, above the building, further up into the sky, above the city, the state, the country, the continent, and eventually above the entire planet. And as your ball of light continues to rise, it rises past all the planets in the solar system, above the entire solar system itself. And it rises past the galaxy. And as your ball continues to rise, it rises past all of the galaxies in the universe, and eventually above the entire universe itself. And as your ball continues to rise, you pass through a set of bright lights, and then you pass through a set of dimmer lights, and then you pass through another set of bright lights, and then another set. How's everyone feel? Excellent. Well, thank you so much for having me and allowing me to share this with you. As Tony mentioned, my name is Timothy Gay. My company is called The Infinite Transition. I am a theta healing practitioner and a soul liberation coach. And to talk more a little bit about that, theta healing is a process, is a technique that we use to work with people in the subconscious belief space. So working a lot with people's subconscious mind, their subconscious beliefs, and any limiting beliefs and blocks that people may have that may be holding them back from the things they love to do and they want to achieve in their life, or things that may be restricting them from having certain things. So for example, working with someone who has relationship issues, working with someone who is dealing with a career or job issue. Also allowing people to release any money blocks, things that they have. And by doing that, what we've allowed to do is I've actually shared a little bit of the process with you as we've allowed to do it. So we allow ourselves to go up to what we call the seventh plane of existence, the plane of all that is. And we can create a command, which I had you all do actually, and witness the changes happening within people's bodies. And then being able to pull them out and actually allowing us to replace them with new beliefs using that same command as well. And then witnessing those changes. So as a theta healing practitioner, I am not necessarily a healer myself, but more or less a channel. And allowing me to facilitate that process allows me to create changes in people's lives and watching them change, not just on a subconscious level, but also on a physical level in this plane. Because when you create those changes subconsciously, you interrupt automatic trauma and stress patterns and allow those things to change into more naturally flowing patterns to allow them to achieve the things that they want to achieve in life. So I've worked on a lot of things from physical health to mental and emotional and spiritual health as well. And that's what I focus on a lot in my work. How I ended up getting started in this work is very interesting because I grew up in Detroit, Michigan, so no, I am not a native Nevadan. I am a transplant, as what's becoming more common around here, as I've noticed. I seem to meet a lot of Midwesterners. It's really interesting. Anyone here from the Midwest besides me? Okay, we have a couple of you. So I have something in common with you. But I grew up, by trade I'm a musician, sing, play saxophone, write and compose, still do all those things actually. But I was a person that when I was in school was heavily teased. And that teasing led me to become actually suicidally depressed. And I went from that state of suicidal depression, dealing with it, going in and out for about 20 plus years. Theta healing was the one thing that got me out of that. And it was one thing that was really huge and was a saving grace in my life because I remember approaching a death door, ready to take my life after working a job that I absolutely hated. But was told to stay because someone said, it's a good idea, you need to stay at the next job you're at for 2 years. And after 1 year, I'm like, this isn't what I wanted. I didn't want this at all. But, you know, you do what someone tells you to do because, well, they know more than you. They're older, they're more experienced. But I was miserable. That theta healing session saved my life, and it took 30 minutes. And it's what led me to become a theta healing practitioner, which I have been doing now for what will be 6 years next month. And I am forever grateful for the opportunity to work with people and helping them change their lives, as well as they teach me so many things about my own as well. So why do I talk about this and why do I bring this up? Because the topic today is really healing through memories, or really having memories being a catalyst for change and a catalyst for healing. So for many of us, when I work with people, I specifically focus on the memories that they have gone through and the things that they have gone through, specifically the trials and tribulations. You know, we live in a world, unfortunately, that, you know, we were talking earlier, that pushes, specifically in the spiritual healing space, of positive vibes only, and everything has to be positive and only positive. And that's great in theory, but unfortunately we live in a world that has trauma, that has stress, that has adversity. And if we're not dealing with that adversity, we begin to turn that adversity internally. And we use that adversity to start attacking ourselves. And then we begin to program that internally. So a lot of my work is looking at people's stress and trauma patterns for where they are right now, and focusing on what they're dealing with on the surface, and then getting to the root cause of that, allowing me to pull those changes out and then to replace them with something new at the root. Because we can't heal symptoms, but we can heal a root cause. So for many of us, if you read my bio, I talk a lot about, for some people, we have very positive memories from things like childhood, from high school, from college, and even into adulthood. I'm like, man, this is great. But for many of us, a lot of those experiences were not positive. So think back, for example, to your own childhood. Think about your memories of what you were taught with, say, expressing emotions. Now, we have a lot of women in the room, which is great. So for you, emotions were natural and normal. But for men, we were taught emotions were a sign of weakness. We were taught emotions were a sign that you weren't a real man. You weren't a real human being, because a man is supposed to be strong, a man is supposed to be stoic, a man is supposed to be devoid of emotion. And yet emotions are the direct path to healing, and we have completely ignored all of that. And it's sad, because that same devoid function of emotion has caused so many problems in our world. So also think back to the point of what you were dealing with in your own childhood, in your own homes. When we were growing up, we all thought that our parents were really good people, or we lived in a great childhood. Some people did not have some people had very direct, bad childhood experiences. But for most of us, we were like, man, I had a really good childhood. Until you grow up and you learn a few things and you realize my childhood was really not as great as I thought. Like, I look at my own case, and this is something I actually was thinking about just a few weeks ago even, as I've been doing a lot of work on myself personally. I grew up in a household with a very judgmental father. Still is judgmental. My dad is now 70 years old. My mom is 68. My mom was, they were both horrible with money. They both, wow, this sounds familiar with a lot of you. Oh my God. Yeah, but they also had their own things. My dad grew up with a very judgmental father. My mom lost her father when she was 14. And they both came from trauma. My dad lost his mother prior to me even being born. So they all had traumatic, they had things that they were growing up and dealing with in their homes. And unfortunately, they ended up passing along a lot of their trauma to us, to their 4 children. I'm probably one of the only one of the 4 that has decided to really dive deep into it and look at a lot of this stuff. But I talk about this because those memories of me growing up, when I was young, I thought, man, younger, and even up to a couple of years ago, I was thinking like, man, my parents were great. And I had some issues with my childhood, but I didn't think it was that bad until you realize that really they were just doing the best that they could, but unfortunately their best was passing the trauma along. And it was really sad. So the reason I talk about these memories is because the memories are awful and they're hard to look at, but they can also be the best source of healing. So I mentioned to you earlier that I'm a musician by trade. What I did not mention to you is that about 5 years ago, I started learning how to salsa dance. And why I talk about dance as a method is because the things that you learn along the way are really big. They're teaching points. They teach you a lot about who you are. So in dance, particularly salsa dance, and I've had dancing with electronic music, where I've been in dance circles at a techno festival, which was amazing back in 2005. But these things teach you a lot about yourself. So being able to use dance as a catalyst for change and a catalyst for healing as well. And I remember being in a dance circle in 2005, and I'll talk on salsa dancing in just a second, but being in a dance circle in 2005, I didn't really know how to dance back then. But you get in a dance circle and you start watching people, and eventually you begin to mimic them. So you begin to start moving just like they do. And I do stuff like that just to show you, like, wow, no one taught me that. I mimicked people and I learned how to do it. But being in a dance circle for a person who was an absolute introvert, very shy, very reserved, taught me so much about being front and center and being able to put myself out there in a manner that you're going to be judged because you got a bunch of people, you got 50, 60, 70 people around watching you. And you're like, man, this is nerve-wracking. But yet being in that circle and being able to Harlem Shake, which I'm doing very poorly right now because I haven't really danced in a while, and just doing it, and people were like, yeah, that's great. That was awesome. Well, fast forward to 5 years ago, learning how to salsa dance. I hadn't been actively dancing in years. But what was really cool about being able to salsa dance is a lot of those old triggers came up. A lot of those old triggers of not being able to do it right, not being able to be good enough, not being able to learn something that is so vastly outside of the realm that you know and understand. And it's funny because by the time I started salsa dancing, I had actually been a theta healer for a year at that point. And I'm like, well, what am I doing this for? Well, at the time I was frustrated with music, so I ended up getting back and starting salsa dancing. I'd actually been doing salsa dance like 10 years prior to when I was still in college, but I hadn't done anything with that. So now we fast forward to that point back in 2014, and I got invited to go to a salsa social. And I was like, man, this is really great. Yes, a dance social, which is really... Yes, dance socials are fantastic. You see them like milongas for tango and things like that. Same concept. And it was really awesome to go out and just experience this and learn something new. But it brought back a lot of those triggers. But when I started going out, I was able to work through a lot of these really interesting things. So I started to, it's funny because I would experience something when I was going out and learning how to dance, and I'd go home and use theta healing to work on it and see what was going on underneath. And a lot of those old triggers came up about, mentioned earlier about not being able to do something right, not being able to learn something new. But also, I began to start challenging my belief systems about, am I really an introvert? Am I really not able to talk to people very well? And that thing was not true. And as I started to go out and dance more, and I got really good really fast, I was a person who was very fortunate to be a fast learner, I got to learn how I can connect with people, how I can reach people, how I can get connected with a community, how I can become one with a new community and understand how all of that worked. It was absolutely amazing. So I talk about, my own traumas, and I talk about the things that I worked with, and I talk about why memories are important, because you can find a lot of your healing in the pain. We try so hard as a society to avoid pain because it hurts. Like, seriously, it's like, it's self-explanatory. It's like, well, it hurts. Yeah, it hurts. Of course it does. And we don't want to feel that pain again. There's a lot of movements out that talk about, I don't have to tell my story again. And because the stories are painful. And the truth is, you don't have to tell your story again. No one should have to tell their story again, especially if the story is painful. And a lot of times we use our stories to kind of cover up our trauma and stuff like that. So we continue to tell it so that we don't have to face the past. But while you may not have to tell your story, you do have to face it. Because the truth is, the only way for healing is to go through the pain. And if you keep avoiding it, what we actually do is it goes deeper into our body, deeper into our subconscious, deeper into our organs and our body systems, and it will stay there, and it will wreak havoc. Take a look, for example, we talk about body, mind, and spirit. Take a look at, for example, the research on stress and what it does to the body. First thing that shuts down is your gut. Then you overproduce cortisol. You overproduce adrenaline. People are always tired. People are always stressed out. People who are extremely stressed look like they've aged 30 years. Ever notice that with a really stressed out person? And what's going on? Well, they're over-triggered. And instead of facing those triggers and facing those things, they choose to run from them. Well, you can run from it for as long as you possibly can, until your heart gives out, or until your lung collapses, or until your liver fails, or your kidney fails. Because all disease is the same. It's just a matter of which organ fails first. And we're trying to run from our memories because that's all the pain, but we have to face that. So how do we begin to start facing our pain? Well, the first thing we have to do is we have to find safe ways to release our pain. One of the safest ways to release pain, in my opinion, is through writing. Do we have any journalers in the room? People who like to write and journal? Sometimes? Yeah, okay. Some people say yes, some people say, I'm doing it every now and then. And it's funny, I don't journal every day. I tried to do that, said, okay, we're going to do journaling every day. Well, then I had a 2-month-old, I had a daughter back in March, and she's now 2 months old as of Friday. And so I haven't had, exactly. Sometimes you can't sit here, it's like, well, I can either change a diaper and feed this girl, or I can go journal. Well, let me make sure I can take care of that. But this has been, it's been one of those things I get to start using that. And the reason why journaling is important is because it's just you. It's a safe space. No one's reading your journals. No one should be reading your journals anyway, outside of you. And you just get a chance to release all of that. And of course, people are, it's really funny, like I hear people talk about journaling, like, well, what do I write about? Well, who cares? I mean, really, like, who cares? Just write. Because the idea is just to start getting the mind to flow, into getting things going. And if you've been dealing with a lot of stuff, especially stuff that you've been afraid to look at or afraid to talk about or really want to hide from, this is the perfect medium for you to let it out. Why not? Like, what's the worst that can happen? The page comes out and attacks you? No, this isn't Harry Potter. I mean, seriously, it's not going to happen. None of this is going to happen. So, just start writing. Even if you see something that you hate, good. It's good to feel that, because when you start to feel it, then you can let it out. There's so much around emotions that we've started to now talk about emotional intelligence. So, fun fact for you guys, I was actually nervous when I came in this morning. It's like, why are you nervous? Because I want to actually be honest with my emotions. We've suppressed this stuff for so long. This is actually why people are sick. Because we've suppressed emotions, and now we have emotional constipation. So people are either harming themselves or harming someone else because they can't express. We have to start being honest with what we feel. So in addition to writing, the best thing that you can do is start being honest with what's going on. If I'm mad, I want to be mad. I was dealing with something the other day going on, and I'm just sitting here like, instead of just healing it and clearing it, let me sit with my emotions. Let me sit with this space for a while and just allow myself to be pissed off. Allow myself to be angry. Because you can't deny how you feel. Once again, let's not suppress these feelings so that they can become backed up, and next thing you know, you're walking down the street, someone says something you don't like, and you punch them in the face. I mean, and yeah, it's funny, but the reality is it's also true. Like, if you're walking through the casino and someone makes an offhanded comment and you've been stressed out and triggered for an extremely long period of time, you don't want to just let loose on some random person who didn't do anything to you, but because they triggered something that you haven't fully healed in and dealt with, it's about, you might need to take a look at that. It's time to start being honest with our emotions. Even just acknowledging and saying something like, I'm nervous, or I'm afraid, or I'm scared, is the best thing that you can do, because at least you're acknowledging it. And then you can begin to shift that. So a journal is a perfect space for you to just start releasing all of your emotions. And it's like, man, if I'm feeling scared because, I'm about to have surgery next week, and I'm not sure what's going to happen on the other side, wouldn't you rather admit that than say, oh, I got to have surgery and not tell anyone about it? And say, well, I'm having surgery. Well, what happens if you die? Like, really? That's it? No, I would rather say, I'm really scared to have this surgery. Because then the people who truly care about you and love you can support you. But if you don't let people know how you're feeling, there is no real support. I don't want to see a society of a bunch of stoic people walking around who would say, well, I don't have any control over my emotions because I'm just going to be stoic and walk around and have scowls on their face all day and, have no care in the world or act like they don't have a care in the world. When in reality, they have no true intelligence with their emotions. So start being honest with your feelings. Start writing down your feelings. Start releasing them. And then look for groups of people. You're in a community here. The funny thing is, if you really look at what a church is, I grew up in the Roman Catholic Church. I grew up in also the black community, in which there are certain things that you weren't able to express, you weren't able to question, you weren't able to really go against. Because if you did, you were told you were a certain way, you were slapped, you were spanked, all those things. But as you begin to grow older, you realize that questioning everything is the best thing you can possibly do. So I remember, being in this community, but one thing I did learn is every now and then you'll get a pastor or a priest that will tell you the truth about everything. And one of the things they told you is that a church was never a building. It was a community of people. And as a community, you guys are each other's support. You don't have to be in a building to truly be able to understand what Jesus or any other ascended master was doing. And the one thing I really love about the Unity Church is it's honoring the divine in everyone as it shows up, not because they follow a specific book or a specific text or anything like that, but as you are. And as a community, you get to be each other's support. So if someone is down, you get to back them up. If someone needs healing, you get to be a resource. And even if you are not the direct resource yourself, you know someone or something that is. And the best thing that I love is being that resource for people. And also knowing that I have resources as well to help me. You know, even as someone who does practice energy healing therapy, I'm only one method. I am not the answer. I am an answer. And that's perfectly fine. And so I have tools that I can refer people to, but also tools that I use myself, because I'm a firm believer that even if I can do this work on myself, I know I have blind spots, and I too need help. So I can always ask for help from someone else. But in order to do that, I have to be willing to face the triggers of the past that have been bothering me for, in my life now, 33 years. So we can use these memories as markers. You can use the things that you've been dealing with as tools. So the reason why you heal through memories and you honor the memories that you have is because they taught you something. Music was a way to teach me how to use my voice. And this is something that's funny. I was at last night a sweat lodge. And then of course I had to get up this morning and drive down from Rito to here. So yay, I had to have a fast sleep. But no, I actually got pretty good sleep last night. But I was talking last night, being a vocalist and a saxophonist, I learned how to use my voice through my instrument. Because when you're in jazz and you're doing improvisation, you're doing spontaneous composition. That's what improvisation really is. It is spontaneous composition, at least according to music and jazz improv. You are spontaneously composing on the spot. And in order to do that, you have to be confident enough to use your voice regardless of how good or bad it sounds. And if you screw up, it's like, I screw up. But it taught me how to use my voice. And singing is the same way. It teaches you how to use your voice. And if you sing to connect and sing just to sing, you're using your voice. You are expressing. Theta healing taught me how to heal. It gave me a method. Because I had done meditation for years. I had actually done, I've been going to group meditations for a while. I had been looking at, methods, working with people, but I had no real method to do it myself until Theta Healing came along. And salsa dancing taught me how to directly connect with people, how to listen to the other person, how to be with them, how to hold space for them. Because it's easy as sometimes when we're leads, as salsa dance, I mentioned that I was going to tell you about it. We have roles oftentimes. It's one of the few places where being a man and a woman in a gender role actually makes sense because of the energy of the man and the woman. But as men, we typically lead and women typically follow. But when we're salsa dancing, oftentimes as leads we think that the other person's doing it wrong, the follower is doing wrong, when in reality sometimes we're just really bad leads. We don't know how to communicate. We don't know how to connect. We don't know how to hold space for the other person. And when I remember taking my first private lesson with my girlfriend's teacher down in Long Beach, I learned a lot about what I didn't know. And it was the best thing that I could have learned. So those are the things that I learned from my memories. What are you going to learn from yours? What are you willing to dive into and learn from your own memories? What are you willing to explore, even if it hurts? You don't have to tell your story, but you do have to learn from it. Thank you very much.
Today is the day I will change my luck. I will fight 3 pennies and they'll be heads up. I will walk like a queen in my tennies and jeans, 'cause I know where I come from. From the stars and the sun, from that magical one, I am part of this thing called life. Yeah, from the known to unseen, everything in between, I am part of this thing called life. I'm one with this thing called life. Yeah, today is the day I'll remember to see only good, only God happening through you and me. I will not forget all the treasures due me, 'cause I know where I've come from. From the stars and the sun, from that magical one, I am part of this thing called life. Yeah, from the known to unseen, everything in between, I am part of this thing called life. I am one with this thing called life. Yeah, today is the day I'll be more of myself, love my skin, where I've been, and everyone else. No more push, no more pull, simply flow as I go, 'cause I know where I come from. From the stars and the sun, from that magical one, I am part of this thing called life. Yeah, from the known to unseen, everything in between, I am part of this thing called life. Yeah, from the stars and the sun, from the magical one, I am part of this thing called life. Yeah, from the known to unseen, everything in between, I am part of this thing called life. I am one with this thing called life. I am loved by this thing called life. Do I desire? What will bring me to my highest good? What do I want? What do I desire? What will bring me to my highest good? Prosperity, prosperity, I claim it, I claim it. Abundance, abundance is mine, is mine. Love, love flows through me, flows through me. I feel joy, I feel joy all the time, all the time. I can have it, I can have it, I deserve it, I deserve it. I claim it, I claim it, it is mine, it is mine. I can have it, I can have it, I deserve it, I deserve it. I am it, I am it, it is mine, it is mine. Peace, peace fills my heart, fills my heart. I surrender, I surrender everything, everything. Health, health is my birthright, is my birthright. Passion helps me sing. I can have it, I can have it. I deserve it, I deserve it. I claim it, I claim it. It is mine, it is mine. I can have it, I can have it. I deserve it, I deserve it. I am it, I am it. It's my time.